have to watch a clock. I don't even have to watch a clock. I don't even have to watch a clock.
Hello, welcome to the Bold Moves podcast. Happy Monday. My name is Mandy Bryce and I am the host. This is episode number 279, and today I am chatting money with Ashley from the Fiscal Femme. So if you have money blocks, if you would like to make more money, if you want to do better things with the money that you have, or if the whole concept of money scares you and makes you uncomfortable, then you should definitely listen on for my chat with Ashley. Here it is. Hello, everyone. Today I am with Ashley Feinstein Gerstley. Super excited to get to know you and your story. How are you today?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my goodness, my pleasure. You know that the show is called Bold Moves, and you wouldn't be on here if you hadn't made some yourself. I'm having a hard time speaking today. Hopefully, when I pass it off to you, it'll give my mouth a rest and be able to recover and won't say goofy things the rest of the interview. But what I
Hopefully it's not contagious.
Well, yes, that too. I think you're far away from me, so at least far enough where you can't catch my breath. Anyway, I am curious a little bit about your story, if you could share, and then some of the risks that you've taken that have earned you the spot of chatting and sharing your big, bold moves with our audience today.
Yes, I'm so excited to be on because I think one of the most beneficial things that I've ever done for my personal life and my career is making bold moves. So excited to talk about a lot of those. A little bit about my background. I started my company, the Fiscal Femme, because I needed it myself and studied finance, worked in finance. And then when I switched jobs, I was making less money and needed to figure out how to save and how to not spend all my money and didn't know how. So I think it was kind of an organic thing that I needed it and wish this was a resource that was available to me when I was starting out in my career. And building the Fiscal Femme led to probably one of my boldest moves, which was quitting my corporate job to run it. Thank you. To run the Fiscal Femme full time. And it's been a little over 5 years now that I've been doing that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're over the hump, I think.
Yes, I know. No one really tells you how long it takes to build a business. It is not a small feat.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard anecdotally 3 years is kind of the main milestone, but I don't necessarily think that was an amazing source. So that's just the only thing that I've heard about that. But you're right. That is something that is under discussed most likely.
Right. Yeah. You see the amazing social media images of people's lives. Yeah. The curated version.
Right. Here I am with my Lamborghini, and we won't talk about what I've had to sacrifice to get there.
Right.
Or whether or not I can actually afford said Lamborghini.
Yeah. If it's actually mine. Yeah.
Right. So I'm curious because it's interesting. I've shared this before, so my long-term listeners have probably heard this, but for me, dealing with money is super unattractive. And you said that you studied finance and you worked in finance, but you also said that you needed this for yourself. So I'm curious if it's something that you needed just because you were interested in it and it didn't exist, or if you had the same aversion as I did and you powered through it.
Yeah. So you're very much not alone in thinking that dealing with money is unattractive. I think pretty much most people have that same aversion. And it was definitely not that I saw this great business opportunity, that there was a hole in the market. It was definitely that I was making mistakes in every area of my personal finances. So I needed it in that way. So I wasn't able to save, and I took a coworker's investment advice and lost a lot of money. And I opened up a very not user-friendly credit card and damaged my credit. And I messed up our renter's insurance, and it ended up really screwing over my roommate. So really, any area of personal finance, you can name an area, and I've made a mistake. And I thought, if I have a finance background and I'm finding it this difficult, then who really knows anything about this? And through my work and my own experience, I found that very few people know anything about this.
All right. So then,
but we don't realize it because we don't talk, it's taboo, and it's something that we don't talk about. So we feel alone in it often. And I think that's why these types of conversations are so important.
Absolutely. And I wonder too, like you mentioned, okay, in just about any area of personal finance, you name it, you've made a mistake. And I bet that's true for a lot of people who don't even have the awareness that they're perhaps continuously making those same mistakes or worse mistakes or just different mistakes, but mistakes in general, and just have no idea.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's common?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the mistakes kind of we realize because they feel really bad or where there's no money and we're seeing debt climb or money go away. But then for sure, there are things that are not optimized or that we're spending, for example, spending money on things because other people do it or we're in the habit of doing it, but the things that we're buying aren't really adding any value to our lives.
Right.
So that could be a mistake, and it's something that if we change would make a big difference for us that we might have any idea that we're doing.
I love that. One thing that's been an eye opener for me as far as, little things that can make a big impact is there's an app called Change Ed. Have you heard of it?
No, but I will check it out.
So if you have student loans or if any of your clients or people have student loans, I can send you a referral link if it interests you. But basically, they round up your purchases. It's like Acorns. Are you familiar with Acorns?
Yes.
It's like Acorns, but instead of it putting it in an investment account for you, it pays toward your student loans. And one thing that I like about it is when they make a payment on your student loans, they actually send you an email saying like, okay, we just deposited $10 and this saves you $15 because it calculates your interest that you would be paying. And I think there was a commercial a while back too that did that for credit cards and talking about interest where they would show people out in the wild and they would say, oh, I really love your purse. And the person would say, oh, thank you. I got it for $99, but I'm going to spend $600 on it by the time I pay off my credit card bill or something like that. And I think it's really amazing how something as small as $10 toward your student loans, when you calculate the interest you're not paying because you're paying it off today, can be so impactful. Do you have any other examples of things like that that could be useful for our listeners and viewers to potentially pay attention to and work on?
Yeah, so I love that. And for this app sounds awesome for a few reasons. I love the tying in the motivation because so much about personal finance, we think, oh, it's just the numbers. Like, but for very few of us, stacking cash, like having a stack of cash is very motivating. It's what we're going to do with that money and what we could do with the money that is now going to interest. So I love that it's connecting like what that means to you. And another thing I noticed with student loans that it sounds like this is helping is that when we pay in advance, let's say you do this on your own and you have an extra $100 to put towards your student loans and you just log in and do that, it will often put that towards the next payment and not actually pay down principal.
Interesting.
So you have to either elect to do it or call somebody. So it's cool that this app is actually doing that for you.
Yeah. And you can actually, in addition to the roundups, you can, if you, like you said, have an extra 100 or something, you can do like a bulk deposit through that too.
That's awesome. I love it. I will definitely check it out and recommend it. Kind of along the same lines, I think automation like this really helps. And one of the reasons I think it makes a big difference is many of us think there's no extra room to have money to go to something. Yeah. So when it rounds up or when it steals from us for our savings goals, one of the cool parts about it, it kind of opens our mind to see that, oh, there is room for saving. And there's this concept called Parkinsons Law. And it's this idea that things take up as much space as we give them. So when we schedule a meeting, regardless of how many things we have to talk about, the meeting typically takes the amount of time we scheduled, or our junk drawer fills up, or our expenses fill our bank account. And so it's really important to pay ourselves first and treat saving or paying down our loans like any other expense, and getting it out of our account is, I think, really helpful. And so apps that are doing that for investing or saving, or if we're doing it for ourselves by setting up automatic transfers, we're paying ourselves first in that way. Because what I've seen and I've experienced many times is how we traditionally save is we earn money, we pay everyone else and live our lives, and then we hope that there will be money left over to save. and there's not ever any money left over. And then we think, if I just earn more money, I'll finally save. I just need to earn more. And then we earn more, same thing happens, and we're still not saving. And so usually that happens a few times and we think, something's amiss here.
Yeah.
And so what I found is you really, in many cases, can't out earn it. And it's really about paying ourselves first.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. And I feel like one of the reasons why I've put off in a lot of ways doing anything with my personal finances other than what you've said, being like, okay, I'm going to pay all of my bills, sometimes splurge for things that I want, and then hope, like you said, that there's extra money left over to put in my savings account, is because before I was an entrepreneur, I was a teacher. And before that, I was a college student. And none of these things, unless you're very successful, are known for being large income potential things. Like, of course, entrepreneurship has that opportunity, but it's not always the case. And so for me, I've been like, well, I'll learn more about personal finance when I actually have the money to do something with. And
Right.
I'm sure that that's a common mistake. So why don't you talk some sense into me and hopefully our listeners at the same time who might need to hear it?
Yes. So I think I love that. Being so honest about that. And you know what's so funny is we all have blind spots around this. So I recently realized I was doing the same thing with giving. So since I left my corporate job, I said, you know what, I'm starting a business, I'm investing, and the business helps people. So that's my way of giving. And I'm really giving a lot of time and do pro bono work. And so that's my giving. But I turned it off and I said, when I start earning more, I will start giving again. And 5 years have gone by, I've been earning more and more, and they're still haven't turned on that giving. And I was like, you know what, I just need to pay them first, do an auto transfer. And so it's just funny how we catch ourselves doing these things in different ways. So we're always, it's a journey for a reason. But I really believe that, first of all, the act of showing our money love and spending time with our money and learning about it creates more money. Because when we're not aware, and this is, there's definitely objective tactical tips, and then there's also our money mindset. And so depending on our beliefs around money, we might have a hard time earning it or have a hard time keeping it. If we believe money is greedy or bad, we have so many beliefs that have been kind of passed down to us and put on us from society that affect how we're able to earn and keep wealth. So I think that's really an important, if you're thinking about your relationship with money, if you think about how you treat it and you kind of write about how you treat money and then place that on your best friend. Like, oh, I never talk about it. I never look at them. I don't spend any time with them. That would not be, they probably would be really upset with you.
Friendship over.
Yes. Bye. So I think that's kind of an interesting way to look at it. And also the habits we build, it's a muscle. So whether you're saving $5 now, and that's something that you inch up over time, that will get you in the habit of doing these smart financial things, quote unquote smart, so that when you're earning more, that's just becoming exponential. Because if you stay with not saving anything or not looking at it, you could start earning tons of money and still not be saving.
I love that.
Yes. I think the biggest advice around this is getting started, and no action is too small. If an action seems daunting, break it down, go smaller, because it has this snowball effect where we build momentum. It becomes fun. I got an email from a client today, actually, and I didn't have a chance to read it yet, but all I saw at the bottom was saving money is so fun. And I was like, yes, because I think that's when it switches to being fun and you realize that it's an act of self-love to give yourself what you want versus kind of, not get what you want because of you're not planning or you're not looking at it. That's a really big shift. And another really important shift is to realize that we can get better at money. It's not this thing that we're just bad at, or we're bad at numbers, so we'll never be good at it. It's something like any skill that we can develop and grow in. And that makes our mistakes seem less like fatal flaws. Like, look at me, I'm an expert now and I've made a ton of mistakes. So you can definitely get better.
I love that. So if somebody's listening and they're in a similar situation to me, or potentially even behind where I've brought myself, what recommendations would you give to someone who's like, okay, I love this idea of money being an act of self-love, because I'm going to be honest, I do. And I haven't thought about it that way in a long time. I think I read it something like that once and I was like, oh yeah, I love that. And then I forgot and moved on. So it's a refreshing reminder that I appreciate. But if somebody hears that and is suddenly more interested or gets inspired by this conversation, which is, I hope, what happens, where do you recommend people start if they're completely at a loss and, have been telling themselves mean things and treating money like a bad friend for a long time?
I love it. Yes. And okay, so I'll give a few tips. I think that would be really fun for those who it didn't click, right? Like if for you've heard it before, you internalized it and it was just a reminder that money is an act of self-love, like dealing with our money, just to think about, because I do lots of speaking on why women need to be wealthy. And if you think about, if you're financially well or have a nice buffer in your bank account, you can actually negotiate harder because you're not afraid of losing out on an opportunity. Mm-hmm. You can leave people and positions when you want. So there's that freedom. You can invest in other businesses and experiences that you want. Women tend to invest more in their families and communities. There's just so many things that there's so much power and freedom in being wealthy. And it's this wonderful thing that we're going to do amazing things with our wealth. So all that to say, if you needed a little more motivation to become wealthy, there's some of that. But my favorite tips, I would say, the first is to keep a money journal.
Okay.
Sounds very simple. To some people, it sounds absolutely horrible. The more horrible it sounds, probably the better it will be for you.
The more you need it.
The more you'll get from it. So all you do is you can keep it in notes on your phone. If you always have your phone, you can keep it in a journal if you're the type of person who loves writing in a journal. Like, for example, if you're listening to this and taking notes, that might be you. But it's just the item and the amount next to it.
Okay.
That's it.
Incoming and outgoing?
I think it's fun to track incoming too, because that's a lot easier and more exciting for us. So why not do that? And especially if your income's variable, it's fun to track that. So find a penny on the street, close a deal, whatever it is, write that down. No item is too small. And the idea is not to have a perfect recount of your spending or your earning, because we can get that from bank statements or reconcile with that. But the idea, and it doesn't have to be perfect, because I see one of the biggest money mistakes is to give up on ourselves as soon as we're not perfect, kind of like a diet.
Yeah.
So what we can do is, if we forget, no big deal. How can I remember next time? Do I need a calendar reminder? It's just a new habit that I'm building, so it's going to take some time. But the point of it is to reconnect with our spending and become conscious, because so much of what we do is unconscious now, with swiping credit cards and hitting buttons and with Lyfts and Ubers, not even paying. Yeah. Apple Pay, like put it up. So it can be a really magical thing, even though it sounds very simple.
I like that. That's a great start.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I kind of dove right into your expertise without getting more into your story, which is funny because I can tell when people have never listened to my podcast and they pitch being on it, because they always say, I can teach your audience this, this, and this. And I'm always like, oh, well, the show is actually about the cool things people have done, not the expertise, although I always dive into that too. But so
especially when it's money, right? Yeah.
Well, usually I don't, but I felt like when I saw your form come in, I'm like, this is someone I need to have, because it's been a long time since I've had a money expert on here. And I feel like I'm feeling a little more ready and empowered. So I was really excited and felt like it was a good time and something that's really important to share. But I'm curious, you said your background is in finance, so I'd like to know a little bit more about that. I'd like to know about the job that you had, I'm assuming right out of college, that you quit to do your other job where you made less, and what you were doing at that job. And then just a little more details about, what you're doing. Cause I've went straight to like, okay, I need to learn from you. And I don't really know like how you serve your clients and so on. So
yes,
give me some of that and I'll try not to interrupt you too much.
Interrupt away. So, so a little more detail on my background. I was actually an investment banker.
Okay.
And was working really long hours. And learning a ton, met really great people, but it just wasn't a great lifestyle fit for me. So
Okay.
was eating unhealthy food, didn't have a chance to work out. This didn't align with how I wanted to be living my life.
Okay.
And it didn't look like it was going to get much better if I stayed. So I actually quit that job to go work in corporate finance at an insurance company. I guess it was right at the end of my 2-year program.
Okay.
And then switched over. Both jobs were in New York. And this job took a pay cut, mostly in my bonus, and but I had so much more of a lifestyle.
Okay.
So I was working now like 8 to 6 and got to go walk the streets of New York when it was still light out. And I kind of made up for lost time, which is why I ended up spending so much money. I took French class and I learned French is hard. That's really all I learned. And I had drinks with friends every night and went out to dinner and did workshops and I just was planning things every night that cost money. And I looked at my bank account and I had quit the day after I got my bonus and it was almost gone. And I realized my lifestyle was so unsustainable that if I continued at this rate, I was going to have to go back to a job like I was in, and said, no, I need to figure this out. It has to be figure outable. So that's kind of what led me to start the money journey, was to stay in my new corporate finance job.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And then what led to you finally deciding you're done, you're going to be on your own?
Yes. So a few bold moves that led up to it. So from my money journey, I read a bunch of things and I was adapting a lot of the exercises and trying them out, and they were working. And so I had this feeling like I really wanted to share it. And I noticed it was an industry that was mostly men, mostly older men. And I wanted to share. And I felt like there was this keeping me out of the club. Like it was made more complicated than it needed to be.
Sure.
And I wanted to share it in an accessible way that I wish I had learned it. So, but I was terrified of putting my voice out there online. And so I actually worked with a coach, and we worked through my fear of what will they think, an investment banker turned life coach sharing her journey. And I started a blog called the Fiscal Femme just to share. Yeah. And so that's kind of where it started. And then people started asking me for help, and other sites asked me to write for them. And I was like, oh, this is a thing. This is not just me. And I realized that yes, we're not educated around money and we don't talk about it and it's emotionally charged, but so much of it is the emotional and behavioral sides of it, our habits, our mindset, and you need both parts. And so that's why I got certified as a coach, because once we know what we should do, we don't always do it.
Definitely true. We've all known what foods to not eat, at least generally speaking. Vegetables are good and French fries probably not. Yes. And still many of us choose one over the other over and over.
Yes. And food and money are so similar. I really believe they're so similar. So as I was building I really had this great opportunity because I was working a lot doing both, but I had time to do both. And at the time I was single, had no kids yet. And so just doing both, and I was building my business, and I got a promotion at work that was going to take a really intensive training and I knew that I would only have time for that intensive training, and I would either have to let go of my business for a time, or I was going to have to take the leap. And I really my plan was to have my business be profitable before I left. I don't know if that ever would have happened, because I don't know if I would have had time to make that happen, but I had to leave way before that happened.
Okay.
and I decided to take the leap. And I remember sitting in my boss's office, physically shaking, as I told him I was going to leave and start this company called the Fiscal Femme.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you did, were you still enjoying that job quite a bit, and it was just time because of the commitment, you didn't want to give up your side hustle, or was it there were more drawbacks than just taking away from the potential for your business?
That's a really good question. I feel like I loved the company. I loved the people I was working with. The work was really interesting. It just wasn't aligned with my like passions.
Okay.
And yes, so I was, helping the company with their finances versus helping people and interacting. And I noticed that it was an interesting to see that all of the things I was doing in my free time, I was on a nonprofit board helping women in microfinance get loans to run their businesses. I was mentoring a lot of people. So things that I was doing on the side for fun were, looking back, made a lot of sense to what I'm doing now. So I was coaching people essentially and helping women with finances.
Okay. So since you get to that point, I was curious exactly how you serve people now. So
Yes.
Is there still a blog? Are you still coaching? How does the Fiscal Femme work?
Yes. So I work with people a few different ways. So I had my first book come out in January.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It is called The 30-Day Money Cleanse, and it came from one of my courses that has been around for probably 4 or 5 years. So now it is in book form. It's really, I think, fun, beautifully designed, and takes you through creating a happiness allocation, which is what I call a budget, because I think budget is a horrible word.
At least creates a response.
Yes.
Not
yeah. And I think it's more fitting. It's how we allocate our money in the way that's going to make us the happiest is all that it is. So, so the book I have a bunch of courses now. The Money Cleanse still exists, a course on investing called The Savvy Investor, a course on debt and credit cards called Tackle Your Debt. And the plan is to have a lot more courses come out this year. And I still do one-on-one coaching, and my courses and coaching and workshops are available to companies as well.
Very cool. I like that.
And I recently my bold move is I starred in a music video parody.
Oh, tell me more about this.
So another coach I worked with, because I was like terrified of being on camera. Yeah. And when the book came out, I knew I was going to be doing a lot of media. And so we worked on that and kind of like taking away all of the, essentially like through business life, like undergrad degree and my investment banking and corporate experience, I felt like people who were professional looked a certain way and like were kind of robotic presenters, kind of like a little more wooden. And so we worked on taking that all away so that I could just be me when I'm speaking to audiences. Yeah. And I think it kind of went full the other direction when I heard the song 7 Rings. Okay. Ariana Grande song. And I loved the woman power vibe of it. Yeah. But it really glorifies acquisition culture and like buying things will make you happy. Okay. So I was like, I really want to rewrite these lyrics, but I have no business doing this. This is not really a productive use of my time. But this coach, Alyssa, said, like you can totally do this. We're going to make a music video. This is going to be awesome. So it empowered me to write the lyrics. We recorded it in a studio, reshot the video, and really like shot for shot her video. Oh my gosh. And I'm so proud of it. And I think it's really funny.
Okay, you're going to have to send me the link so I can include it in the show notes.
And it's all about like how badass it is to save money. That's really power is in saving. Yeah.
That's so funny because I'm going to completely out my husband here, which I do all the time, so it's probably fine. But he loves that song because he thinks of me as a badass, and he's like, this reminds me of you. This is you. I'm like, okay, that's really cute. And now I'm so like, cute. Might need to get you to like the saving one better.
Yes.
And I've seen a parody one too that was about Korean barbecue.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the 7 Rings, but it was to Korean barbecue. So you're not alone. Yeah, I'll see if I can find the link to send that to you.
That's funny.
But that's awesome. Yeah, you'll have to share that because that's...
Yeah, so maybe he'll think of you now. It's like, I want it, don't got it.
Yes, I think we can make that switch. All right, so you've discovered a talent in music video parodies. That's fantastic. I'm curious if you know your purpose, and if so, what it is, if you don't mind sharing. I know that's
Yes.
dynamic, and for some people that's a really big question, but I always like to hear the different responses.
Yeah, that's a really cool question. Honestly, I would say to get women wealthy. I think that's it.
I love that. So I might be able to guess this because of things that you said earlier about the first job that you had in as an investment banker, but I meant to ask you why women specifically.
Mm. I think there's something, I just am like really into equality,
Okay.
and I get really riled up about inequality.
Yeah.
And so I think money is a very important missing piece of that.
Okay, that's fair. I liked
Yeah.
what you said about thinking about the amazing things women can do with their wealth, because that was another like wake up call moment for myself. I have a friend who is in finance, and he one day told me, like, okay, it's so easy to think about acquiring money as a greedy thing to do, but when you think about how the world would be if all of the good people had more control of the wealth, it's like, okay, yeah, that's a really good motivator.
Yeah. And women actually, when we do invest, we're better investors, we're better at saving. So I think we invest more money into families and communities when we have it. And just having, I think right now, if you think about companies, oh my gosh, I could go on and on. But if there's more diversity in companies,
Yeah,
from the top down, the companies actually do better. So it's like better. And then right now, only 2.5% of venture capital funding is going towards women-owned businesses. So
interesting.
we're over half the population. And
Yeah.
like, I'm very suspect that we have only 2.5% of the good ideas, really.
Yeah, that definitely raises an eyebrow somewhere.
And the other crazy stat that really shocked me, there are more CEOs named John than there are women CEOs of the largest 1,500 companies.
Wow.
Isn't
And I
that
feel like that
insane?
also says a lot about what race those people probably are.
Yes, right. Like, don't even start there. I know. Can you imagine? Yeah. And if you think of the pay gap, like the pink tax and the pay gap is so much worse for women of color. It's just crazy.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
crazy. So with those kind of stats, I feel like that makes even what you're doing as an entrepreneur even more bold and scary. I'm curious what the scariest moment you've ever been through. I don't know if it was when you were shaking and resigning with your boss, or if it's something that you haven't shared yet, but I'd love to hear what it is.
Yeah. I feel like this is I think it's a very good habit, but it also makes my life very difficult that I always do the scariest thing.
Well, that's why you're here.
So at the time they all feel equally scary at the time, but I think what happens is your zone of comfort, I guess, continues to get bigger as long as you keep doing it. So
Sure.
I used to be terrified of public speaking, and now that's a really big part of my business.
Yeah.
So at the time, like, my first workshop was so scary, or the first time I was on TV, so scary. And of course, quitting my job and my first blog post on the Fiscal Femme. So I think they all feel like that same feeling of wanting to curl up on the floor in the fetal position, and time passes. My first keynote, I think, was also really intimidating and scary for me. But I think those are the things and it's something that my mom that was the lesson she taught me, to always get out of my comfort zone, and she lives it. And so I think I have that bug where it's like, I think the scariest thing to do right now is the thing that I'm supposed to be doing.
I love that. So when you're about to get on that stage or publish on your blog post or quit your job or anything, like, what advice would you give to somebody who's about to do or is considering doing that scary thing and is afraid to pull the plug? How do you push past the fear?
Yeah. Well, I think either side, like, so for example, like telling people, so you have to do it, or if it's the speaking engagement, you book it, right? You have to go. So that's sometimes how I am roped in. I'm very optimistic about it. And then my gosh, I actually have to do this.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't think anything makes it easier. It's just like breathe and go.
Fair enough.
Yes. And I don't know if it's done especially the first time. I don't think it's done very gracefully. It's just like it's getting done.
There you go. It's not always pretty, but it happens.
Exactly. Yes. Maybe that's a funny book title.
Yeah.
Memoir.
All right, good. Books. Perfect. I wanted to ask you. So I feel like from a couple of things that you said that I may be able to guess some authors that you'll recommend. So before I ask you your book recommendations, I want to see if I'm right.
Oh, that's so fun.
One of them is I'm guessing that you're a Marie Forleo fan. Because you said figure outable, and I immediately thought of Marie Forleo. And then my second guess is Jen Sincero.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Because some of what I've read in You Are a Badass at Making Money was kind of coming through when you were talking about the mindset piece behind. So I'm curious then, what are your book recommendations, including but not limited to potentially the two authors I just brought up?
Yeah, those two are great. So Jen Sincero's You're a Badass at Making Money. Both are great, but the money one, I think. One I'm reading now that I love, and I actually just finished her Netflix special, is Brene Brown's Daring Greatly.
Mm-hmm.
Really good one. The Confidence Code.
Okay.
Which is all around like the science behind confidence and building it, which is really fascinating.
Okay.
What else? For money ones, The Soul of Money, Lynn Twist. Of course, my book, 30-Day Money Cleanse.
I was going to say, I almost forgot to get you to plug that again. I had that other segue.
Overcoming Under-Earning is a really good one by Barbara Stanny.
Okay.
And I love also Dan Ariely. Anything, it's all around like the behavioral, he's like, what would he call himself? Like a behavioral scientist, but does a lot through the money lens.
Okay. What's one of his titles, just to make sure, because his last name sounds difficult. So I want to make sure.
Yeah. The most recent was Dollars and Cents.
Okay.
And it was also Jeff Chrysler co-wrote it with him. It's a really good one.
Cool. And I always like to put them in the show notes. So I want to make sure that I'm able to get that name since it sounded challenging.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And one I read that took a while, but it was kind of like you read a little bit and you just sit with it, was Tribe of Mentors.
Okay.
By Tim Ferriss. That was really cool.
Excellent. He's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for those recommendations.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm forgetting some. There's so many.
Absolutely.
I love books.
Same. I'm sure you can tell by looking behind me. There's stacks of them. So you mentioned your book is the 30-Day Money Cleanse, and I assume that that's available on Amazon. Where else is it available?
Barnes & Noble, Amazon. I think, but I think the best price right now is Amazon.
Okay. Save some money so that you can be smart with it.
Get the book and save some money.
You don't have to allocate so much from your happiness. Was it happiness allocation?
Yes. Wow.
Yeah,
I'm using the terms. It's great.
Somewhere else.
And free shipping. Yeah.
Now, in addition to Amazon, where else can we find you online if people are interested in following you, learning from you, or working with you?
Thefiscalfemme.com is the website, and there are all these, I can also give links to them, but we have some great free guides on like getting your finance together in 48 hours or save $1,000, negotiating. So we have some good ones there. And then on social at the Fiscal Femme.
Okay. And is that every social media platform?
Not every, but on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Okay, the major players. So you're not on MySpace or Friendster. I don't remember what some of those older ones were. All right, cool. Well, I will make sure all of that, including links to your book recommendations,
and
are
the music video.
And the music video. And I want all of those guides sound like things that we need. So if you can send me those links separately,
cool.
That would be amazing. And I'll make sure that our listeners and viewers can find those easily. All right. So my last question for you is one of my favorites. And for me, it's so interesting in this case because I I mean, like I've said, I've got a bit of an aversion when it comes to finances. So the idea of even going to school to study that sounds so unattractive. So I can't imagine me ever wanting to do that, much less an 8-year-old version of me wanting to do that. So what I want to ask you is, if 8-year-old Ashley had a crystal ball and could look into the future and see your whole entire journey up to now, as well as you may have certain plans. I know you said you have more courses coming out, whatever is in the foreseeable future that you can see now, on a scale of 1 to 11, how excited would little Ashley be to see where you are now?
Ooh, I love that question.
Isn't it fun?
Yes. And it's funny because I say, like, I've really been thinking about life goals are getting back to like my 5-year-old self.
Yeah.
Because that was just such a fun, like just having fun, not all of the stupid stuff that gets piled onto us. Yeah, I think that's an amazing life goal to live, to make 8-year-old Ashley think it's an 11. I hope she would think it's an 11. I feel like the music video especially, I think that'd be a cool 11-year-old or 8-year-old dream.
Absolutely. So would you say 11? Do you think you got it?
I think I should do like 9 and strive for 11.
Okay, there's room to grow.
Yeah, you got to have room to grow.
I love it because in the way that you described your answer, kind of got around to it. It reminded me of, have you seen the movie The Kid? It's a Disney movie with Bruce Willis.
No.
Okay, it's really cute. And I don't remember how it happens to him, but he's like a cranky, cynical adult, Bruce Willis. And then he somehow gets to hang out with the kid's version of himself, who is like so disappointed that he doesn't have a dog. Like, he doesn't understand Bruce Willis's life really, but he's like, what? I don't get a dog. And like, it just made, the way you said, like, that would be a good life goal, is like to imagine, like, how disappointed would child Mandy be that I have no pets right now? like, what? You could get any pet you wanted and you don't have one?
And then you had a salad for lunch. Come on.
This is all wrong.
That's so funny. I want to watch that too.
It's cute. It's not like, cinematic masterpiece, but it's cute.
It's honestly what I like to watch. I need light,
Yeah.
Like,
it's got
life is hard.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me and share so much value and knowledge. I know that I found it super beneficial, and so I'm sure that listeners and viewers will agree. And I'm super excited for all the resources and the music video.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was such a fun conversation.
I'm so glad.
I know that made me excited to do a little check into her book, because that cleanse sounds necessary and interesting. And I'm really excited for her challenge for Friday. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I always ask my guests to give a challenge so that the listeners and viewers, if you're watching on YouTube, have something to do to put the motivation and inspiration in action. So please make sure you subscribe so that when that episode comes out on Friday, you either get a notification or an automatic download. I would really appreciate that, so that you don't miss that or the exciting, awesome interviews that I have coming up. I would also love it if you shared this, especially if anyone that you know who is potentially coming from a challenging mindset regarding money. This could be super helpful, and I would love to hear about Ashley and I working together to make some people rich. So please share it. That would be awesome. Of course, also, when you're subscribing and sharing in Apple Podcasts or whatever app you're on this listening to, I would love it if you left a review if that is an option. My goal is to inspire as many people as I possibly can to go after their dream lives, and that could include either making more money or being better with money. And so if you can leave a comment, I would really appreciate it, because that would tell Apple that people are liking the show, and then maybe Apple will suggest it to more listeners, and then that'll help me get closer to my goal of inspiring more people. So we could all work together with the sharing, the subscribing, and the hopefully 5-star reviews. Although if you have criticism for me, I would love to hear it and have the opportunity to learn and improve. So you can either do that in a review, or feel free to send me a message or leave me a comment on social media. I'm really easy to find at Mandy with an IE, Bryce, B like basketball, RICE.
But you can find all the show notes and, well, all of the links to Ashley's stuff and the books she recommended and everything at the show notes, which are at boldmovespodcast.com. And you could also send me your criticism through the contact form on my website. All right. Thank you so much for listening. As always, be bold and have a sparkly day. Bye-bye.